Welcome. Welcome. This is Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. This is the Anyone Can Farm Experience live chat, Tuesday night edition. I'm Mark, your host, coming from lovely Marion, Michigan, Baker's Green Acres. How do I look? Yeah, I found out today that I had an eye doctor's appointment. Haven't had one in quite a long time. Found out I need glasses, right? So next time you see me, these are just reading glasses, right? I got them at Home Depot, and they kind of double as safety glasses when I'm doing stuff. And I need it when I'm here, when I'm going to read the chat. So that's why I wear them when I'm on. But the ones I'm getting are actually real glasses. And I was a little reluctant, I must say. I was a little reluctant. I thought I see pretty well. But they ran me through a bunch of tests and showed me what it would look like if I had glasses. And I thought, yeah, maybe we'll give it a shot. And by the time I said yes, I was down $600. So if you want to super chat me tonight, just keep that in mind. All right, so I got something to brief on tonight, and we've titled this tonight The Terminator. And part of what I'm going to talk about tonight reminds me of that movie from 1984. I remember I had just gone in the service, went to a movie shortly after I got out of tech school. So I had a little freedom, went to a movie and watched The Terminator. And I've never forgot it. Never saw it since. So that was a long time ago. 1984. That's 40 years. Whoa, that's an old movie. Those people are all old people by now. Too bad for them. So anyway, I want to brief this tonight because you're going to hear about it. And I want people to hear my response to this, because this is sort of an ongoing thing. And I suppose as long as we're walking on this earth, whether it's round or flat, doesn't matter, we're going to hear about things like this. And what stories like this do a lot of times when they get retold and you get part of the story and then there's an add-in and you fill in the rest. And a lot of times I'm finding that people have a tendency to fill in really bad things instead of really good things. They fill in the bad. And so anyway, I got a text yesterday from somebody in the tribe. Her name is Jessica Rouser. And it was, I can read you the text. I should read it verbatim. She would not mind. She is a good friend, and her and her husband Josh are tearing it up on their farming experience and really going for it. And we've sat and talked several times about what if, what if. And the what if in a lot of people's mind when they get into farming is, well, what if I get raided, And even that statement right there, or that question, tells me that there's been a whole lot of fear injected into this population when it comes to farming. And you got to ask yourself the question, why is that? If we had a snowmobile club, that wouldn't be the first and foremost on people's conversational list when you're sitting around a campfire or something. Anyway, I've had this conversation with Jessica many times. I'd say 5. And each time she gets a little deeper in, and so if I wanted to have her on tonight, but she had other commitments and she didn't say that she wouldn't come and give her testimony, but tonight wasn't going to work. And I wanted to get out in front of this a little bit because I feel as though every time there's an incident like this, it has sort of a chilling effect on our community, right? So I want to get out in front of it and tell you what she told me when I talked to her on the phone today. But anyway, I got a text from her yesterday, and it was short and sweet. It says, well, it happened. MDARD came. Just that short. MDARD is Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. And when we hear MDARD, first of all, when people are asking me about that, I think they envision like German SS officers or Gestapo officers, when it could not be further from the truth. Now, I'm not sticking up for them. I'm actually saying they don't dress that well. They don't carry themselves that well. They're not disciplined like that. They're not strong people. So when you get a visit from them, she didn't say raid, they came. When you hear about things like that, you envision the worst. They're kicking the door down. They're grabbing people and holding you at gunpoint and all that stuff. And that's not the truth at all. They show up usually in a car, a black car, with a Department of Agriculture logo on the side. And that enough is to put people on edge, because it's one thing if somebody calls you and says, hey, we're going to stop over if that's okay, and makes an appointment. It's totally another thing when some official looking car like that pulls in the driveway unannounced, which I think is totally improper, of a professional organization, which I don't believe they are. And I'll get into that a little bit. So anyway, then well, we need to talk. And so she called me this morning. I was just on my way out the door, but I plopped back down and I said, okay, tell me what happened. And as best I can remember it, she was going about her day business. First of all, their farm, a very general purpose farm like ours. They do a lot of things, and they have a store, just like we have a store. So the things that we produce go in our store, and then our patrons can come and they can exchange with us for the things that we produce, whether it's hamburger, milk, butter, cheese, whatever we're, pork, pastured poultry, produce, firewood, feed, whatever it is that people need and we can trade. Now, they can trade me dollars for it. They can trade me more firewood for it. They can trade me services. They can trade me gold and silver, guns, ammunition, whatever it is that they have that has value. And if I need it, yeah, I'll take it and trade. We can always use dollars. Dollar is probably the least real value of anything that people trade, but there's perceived value to it. And I can take those dollars and I can pay my electric bill with them. I can buy gasoline with them and things like that. You kind of get the picture. So they have that going. And they're really nice people. They work really hard. They're very serious about what they're doing. Her husband works from home. And Jessica is she's the ramrod there. She's a go-getter. And I first met her in one of our hog harvest classes that we did down at the Declaric Homestead, as a matter of fact, right? And they're also good friends of ours. And so that was got to be 3 or 4 years ago. It was a ways back. And so, that's where our friendship began, and our relationship, I guess, began between our families and her and the tribe and things like that. And they told us what they wanted to do. And, we gave them input there. Well, this is what we do. And, you can do this, you can do this, they can do this. And also some things that I recommend don't do. So she's a private business. It's a private property. And yesterday, sometime during the day, I think it was in the afternoon, Department of Agriculture car rolled in the driveway unannounced, and she saw the car come in the driveway. And I had briefed her many times, when she would give me scenarios. Well, if this happens, what do I do? If this happens, what do I do? So I briefed her many times on what to do. And so her actions today were good, but I even told her they weren't great. They weren't great. You handled it well, you stuck to your guns, and you did a good job, but not a great job. And so we want to go through it. I pull it apart and tell you what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And for all of you that are thinking, oh, aren't you sharing your secrets? And they'll share their secrets with Department of Agriculture. My secrets, they're not secrets, right? And I would love it if a half a dozen of you would share this with somebody that you know at the Department of Agriculture. I would love it, so they know. Because there is an end game here, and this is not over. What happened today? It is far from over. So what happened was they showed up, and before the gentleman, I don't have his name yet, but I will have his name, and I will have all of his information soon, because we want to know who we're dealing with. I just don't have it at this time. I wished I'd had. I tried to get Jessica to come on and do this, but she wasn't able to tonight. But maybe we'll be able to get her on next week. Instead of her letting him get out of his car and saunter up to her shop or her store, she dashed out the door and met him while he was still seated in his car. And he rolled down the window, and she stood there with her hands on her hips and said, "What do you want?" And he said that they had received a complaint and he was here to address the complaint. Okay, so just take that right there and put that in a box to the side. And we're going to talk about that in a minute too, right? Because there's a lot to unpack on that as well. And this is coming from somebody that's dealt with these people for a long time, and I know their ways, right? So she told him, no, you got to leave. And he continued the conversation and opined that he didn't understand why he was being treated badly like this, and he'd never been treated like this before, and all he wants to do is do his job and things of that nature. And then Jessica, by her own admission, said, I got curious. And she also got cold, because it's cold up here in northern Michigan. She's about an hour and a half south of me, and they've got way more snow than we do, but it's just as cold. And she was out there, I would assume, without a coat on. And so she said, okay, come in. Now, she did that by her own admission because she was curious. She wanted to know who complained, what the complaint was, and things like that. Now, just remember that. Remember that curious thing, right? Curiosity. Remember what curiosity did? All right. And they had a brief conversation, and she wanted to know who complained. And he said, well, it was anonymous. Okay, so let's put that one in a box too and put that to the side with the whole complaint thing. An anonymous complaint. All right. And she said to me, I'm going to address this. And I talked to her about this morning. She said, well, I can read people pretty good, and I thought he was a decent guy. Okay. And then he told her that, hey, I drink raw milk. You know, if I wasn't working for this corporation here, I wouldn't even be here, you know, and yeah, you're probably going to get a cease and desist, and, you know, you can just throw it in the trash because nothing's going to come of it. This is what she said. He said. So that was about the end of it. He wouldn't tell her who the complainant was, or he said that the complainant was an anonymous person. And this part of it right here that I'm going to tell you is a part that requires more conversation with her. She believes that it was a store in town. They live out in the boonies. She believes it was a store in town that complained because she's taking business away from them or whatever. And I said to her, what makes you think it was that place in town? And it was because of a post that somebody that works at that store had made online, complaining about what she's doing. All right, you connected the dots, but I don't know. I don't know about that. I just don't know. And at this point, we don't know. But that really is not what I want to talk about tonight. I mean, I want to talk about how she handled herself and how the system works, how MDARD's system works. So let's see. This brings me to the title of this presentation. It is The Terminator. And it has to do with a part in the movie The Terminator. And I just referenced it. I went on YouTube and I put in Terminator and dead cat. So go ahead and do that. I'm not going to play it because it's pretty foul. And I'm just going to explain it to you. And okay, so let me set this up. So the Terminator is a cyborg. He's covered in human flesh, but he's a skeleton of some sort of alloy and got AI in his brain and everything. And he's got these weird eyes, but he looks like a human, looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's who played him. And he travels from the future to kill a woman who is going to lead a revolution in the future. All right. And so he tries to kill her a bunch of different ways and doesn't succeed because there's a hero in there that is keeping her from getting killed at the last minute about 4 or 5 different times. So anyway, in this scene, the Terminator is in a hotel room and he's all beat up. Half of his face is kind of torn off. His cyborg eye is showing. The other one is just a normal human eye. And he's got cuts all over him. And he's there and he's sewing himself up. And this flies on him. And he's going to work doing this. And he's also reading some reference material at the same time to try and find this girl. And there's a knock at the door. And the camera shot goes to outside in the hallway. And there's this guy out there. And he's pushing a cart with a bunch of cleaning supplies on it. He's got a cigar hanging out of his mouth. And he's wearing a wife beater t-shirt. He looks a mess. And he says, "Hey, buddy, what do you got in there? Dead cat?" Obviously there's a smell coming from the room because there's rotten human flesh on the Terminator. And so the Terminator hears it. And then the camera shot goes to like inside of his brain, and you see a readout of probable responses. And I wrote them down. So I watched it a couple times. I had to frame it so I could get the probable responses. The first probable response on his list was yes or no. Second one was or what? Because remember the guy said, "You got a dead cat in there or what?" I think that's what he said. The third response was go away. Fourth response was please come back later. Let's see. The fifth response was FUAH, right? And then the last response was just a plain FU. And so the Terminator could pick from any of those. He picked FUAH. And he said that to the guy. And the guy put his cigar back in his mouth and started pushing the cart back down the hallway, going to the next room. He was going to the next room, right? Not going to kick the door down and find out if he's got a dead cat in there. He's just going. So that kind of came to me today as I was thinking about this. And I thought, well, it's a good way to set up a conversation. So when something like this happens, you should have a list of responses that come up. You know, I'm from the Department of Agriculture. Have you got a dead cat in there? I'm from the Department of Agriculture. I would like to talk to you about a complaint that we got. And your list of probable responses come up in your mind, and you should have those probable responses already prepared. Maybe this talk will help you to prepare that list of probable responses. This case is kind of unique in that this is one of the first people that I've spoken to, Jessica, that preemptively came to me and said, well, what do I do if this happens? Because when I first met her, they didn't have a store. They didn't really have a very big operation. They were just building it, and they wanted to know, well, what's the best way to go? You know, should we sell to retail stores? Should we, and I said, well, I found the best way is to have your own store, because if you want to sell to the retail stores, you got to have the blessing or the license from MDA. And if you sign on the dotted line on that license, they have every right to come up your driveway. But if you do not have a license, much right to come up your driveway is as, say, a religious group does. They can come up once, but if you tell them, probable responses, can we have a word with you? If the response that you give is yes, then in effect, you're inviting them into your world. And with that invitation comes many things that you probably don't want and you don't need, because they're not here to help you. They're never here to help you. I mean, by the guy's own admission, yeah, you'll probably get a cease and desist in the mail, but you can throw it away. But that's not helping. All that's doing is an official looking piece of paper from an official looking organization. And we don't know, or I know, but most people, if they get that, they don't know. And so they have a decision to make at that point. Okay, if she said yes, which first she said no, go away, right? That was the correct response. But then she said, and she filled it in with, oh, he looks like a good guy. And I'm going to address that. Maybe he is a good guy. And she brought him in to her store. Big mistake. If he could come into her store without her invitation, he would have. He would have just come in. But now that he's in, he is scanning. He's seeing everything that's in there. By the fact that he is in, now when he does his after action report of what he did that day, that he's got to turn in to his superiors, this is what I did. And when I was in, I saw this, this, and this. Now, maybe he says, I saw a dead cat in there. Maybe there was a dead cat in there. But if he had never gone in, he would have never seen the dead cat, right? maybe while he's in there, he's like, okay, beef, pork, chicken, honey. So now he's able to fill in statements on that report. They had this, they had this, they had this. The walls were painted yellow. He would never know any of that if she had stuck with no, go away. Okay? So curiosity got the best of her. She wanted to know who thinked on her, right? Because they said somebody did, right? They said somebody did. And of course, they follow up on every complaint that's made against a private citizen, correct? Right? They do. They follow every single one of them. Right. So they're just doing my job, lady. I'm just doing my job. I'm just following up on a complaint here. Right. Even though I don't have a copy of the complaint or even tell you who made the complaint. Right. So I kind of contend here that that is a ploy to inject a little curiosity, right? First, he says, I'd like to have a word with you. She says, no, get. And then he says, oh, well, somebody complained. So then Jessica's like, I want to know who complained, right? To inject a little maybe anger into the whole thing, to cloud things. So she lets him in. He looks around. They finish up the conversation. He tells her, hey, I drink raw milk. I drink raw milk. I eat this kind of food all the time. I have my own garden. I mean, I eat sourdough bread. My wife is on Pinterest all the time. I'm one of you. I'm one of you. Yeah, I hate this job. I just got to do it to make money. Okay, so let's pick that apart a little bit so we can kind of get an idea of the integrity of the organization that we're dealing with. Okay, so if he had come up the driveway and just said, yeah, we saw what you post online on Facebook and we're coming to check it out because we really want you to have a license from us to do this so that we have the right to come in here anytime we want just to check your freezers to make sure that they're cold or to make sure you haven't got any dead cats in here. That's what they really want. And most people will either capitulate and get a license from them, or they'll just quit. Because when you buy into their license, you're buying into all their little rules, right? They're little rules. They're just rules. They're not laws. These people are not lawmakers. They're not even keepers of the law, right? If they were, this wouldn't have happened. I'm going to explain to you why this wouldn't have happened. So Jessica said she can read people pretty well. And maybe she can. Maybe she can. Yeah, she's friends with me, so obviously she can. But I think that is irrelevant. And I told her that this morning. It's irrelevant if you can read people well. You are dealing with an organization that continually harasses and coerces small farms into either capitulating to their licensing agreement or getting out because they think that it's too scary, dealing with these people. So I told her that it doesn't matter if it's a good guy. What you have here is something more like a war going on. You have one side, the Department of Agriculture, that is all about industrial ag, and they want nothing to do with small farms other than to harass them. That's been our experience. If somebody can tell me differently, I have to see it. I don't see Department of Agriculture showing people how to farm. All they do is people who are farming, trying to make a go of it, they seem to just pile on and harass them and cajole them into trying to do something that puts them under their control, right? That's all I ever see. And make no mistake, once you sign on the dotted line on that license, they are in charge now. Because if they give you a license, they can take it from you. And if they take it from you, there goes your customer base. If you're doing business with people who require a license, if you're going to sell to a third party, like a store, retail store, or restaurant, you're going to have to show them a license from MDA. Why? Because they're under license too. And their license says you only buy from people who are under license with us. Sounds a little bit like, I don't know, sounds kind of like a scam. What would you call that? If somebody can think of the word, go ahead and write it in. So it is irrelevant if it's a nice guy or if it's a gal. It's totally irrelevant at this point. Why? Because they're taking a paycheck for the other team. So when a guy that's on the other team says, yeah, I don't really like the team I'm working for. I like to drink raw milk. I like to eat sourdough bread. My wife watches Pinterest all the time, and I'm a Pinterest farmer, and I'm all about what you guys are doing. He's throwing his organization under the bus. I don't see that as a very integrous, is that a word? Integrous. I don't see that as very integrous behavior, for one. So you're going to trust him that he really hates his employer, and so you're going to show him around. I'm going to show you around. Yeah, I'll show you all the things I got here. I'll show you everything. I'll even show you the dead cat that I got behind the counter here, right? So that was a bad move. That was a bad move, even thinking that this might be a nice guy. It's irrelevant to this conversation, whether it's a nice guy, a bad guy, a good guy, it's irrelevant to this situation. It's sort of like in war, right? We wear these uniforms, they wear those uniforms, the guys that were. And if we see them before they see us, we terminate them. Now, I don't want this to be construed in any way as we need to terminate people, physically in any way. However, this harassment can be terminated personally in your life. It is terminated in my life, and I want to go into that. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the Department of Agriculture. Not to get too personal, but the people that work for them are not the sharpest pencils in the box. As a matter of fact, they have a lot of problems with their people, a lot of problems. There's a lot of personal problems with their people, a lot of gender dysphoria, if you know what I mean, with their people. There's a lot of problems with those people. But they get a degree from the university in something, and they need a job. And so they go to work for the state, like nobody else wants to hire them. You could be a food inspector, mister. I think you could be a food inspector. And so they wind up being a food inspector. And then they wind up having to do stuff like this. Now, this guy was in no way acting on his own personal fact-finding mission. He was detailed there. Organizations like that don't give you a car and say, yeah, go inspect some food. They're given an itinerary of things to do by their bosses and their bosses' bosses. And it works all the way up the chain of command, right? There's no autonomy if you're a food inspector. Well, I think I'll stop in over here and inspect the pickle barrel. That's not how it works. Because with people of low integrity, you have to keep them lined out. All right. Now, every time we've dealt with them, we're dealing with extremely low integrity people. And they're just, I'm just doing my job. I don't really care. I'm just doing my job. And they're usually doing the work of their of their, chain of command, and they have to show that they're effective. So they love to make these splashes. They love to make it because what does it do? It injects fear into the small farms community because you fill in the blanks of, oh, Jessica got raided. Is she okay? Did they take any of their children? You fill in the blanks. In reality, the guy drove up the driveway, said, "Hey, I got to talk to you about this complaint that I got, and can I come in?" Right? That's not a raid, right? It is improper. It is highly improper. If I have any religious groups come up my driveway, I don't care if they're Christians. You make an appointment with me. I'm not going to just talk to you about something completely chart here because you decided to drive up my driveway. You don't get my time like that. So in war, you don't say, well, he looks like a nice guy, so I guess I'm not going to pull the trigger on him. You don't do that. You pull the trigger because if you don't do it to him, he'll do it to you. And if you don't do it today, you may have to deal with him tomorrow. That's how war is. And I can even give you some great, well, I won't go into that right now, but it's sort of the same. We're not dealing with terminating one another, not lives, but we are talking about if he could get a good enough case against her by gaining access into her world, he is going to generate a cease and desist. So Jess and Josh are feeding their families by farming. So he seeks, even though he's a minion of this evil organization, I shouldn't even give it the term evil because then you think SS, or Gestapo. They're not. They're kind of like poison ivy, Poison ivy is always going to be around. And if you rub up against it, you're going to itch. But that's about it. They're itch. And to make poison ivy irrelevant, you don't rub up against it. You learn what it looks like. You know where it is likely to be. And if you're highly susceptible to it, you stay away from it. Where I'm from in Massachusetts, it's prevalent. I don't know why they don't put it on the invasive species list because people actually have real problems with poison ivy where I'm from. I remember when I was a kid, I had it so many times, and usually we would be digging, and you get into the roots, poison ivy roots, and you get that sap on you, and you just get a big welt, and then it itches. You scratch it, and then it gets open, and terrible, terrible stuff. But so MDARD is sort of like poison ivy. I think they're always going to be around, I think. But that doesn't mean that you have to let them irritate you. There is a way. And just when in the list of probable responses, she said, no, go away. But curiosity got the best for her, so she invited him in. Now, this guy go back to his office and write up a little report, and he's got statements to put in there instead of him writing a report. Yeah, I went here, and she told me to pound sand. Get the hell off, right? That would be the end of the story right there. It's not like, well, the food inspector couldn't get access to it, so we'll send the state police over. That's not the way it works. State police are law enforcement, right? They don't get involved with food issues unless, we're going to get to that, unless you don't handle yourself properly. Like in the list, you went past FUAH, which you can. I mean, I don't know as I would, because I think no is sufficient, but FUAH is a good one. Yeah. Or just the one at the bottom, FU, that is a good, it would work. I don't think it's necessary to lower yourself there, but it kind of sends a message like, I don't want you here. I don't like you. I feel very strongly that you shouldn't be here. I think that's the message you send when you say something like that. I don't know as I would. I just don't think I would ever do that. I think I would go with no, please leave. Leave it right there. Or what? I don't know. That doesn't really apply on this one. The next one is go away. Go away. Yeah, that would work. The next one after that is please come back later. Well, keep that one in mind. That might work for you because let's say that you haven't thought about this a lot, or when you see that car and you see that official looking badge and you see that white shop coat and the hairnet and the clipboard, you get overcome with emotion, let's say. You get overcome with emotion and you start to jitter and shake and you're scared. Jessica even said this. She said, well, she said this to Beth. No matter how many times I've talked to Mark about this, when it happened, I wasn't prepared, right? It's wars like that too. You can practice all you want, for war. But when it really gets to the real thing, that's totally different thing. Totally different. And you could either curl up in a ball or you could wind up like Jessica, dashing right into that machine gun, standing there with your hands on your hips like, what do you want? Either way, could go either way. She said she had a little bit of both going on, right? So let's see. If she had not brought him on, it would be a dead issue right here. It would be dead issue. But it's not dead now because now she's going to receive paperwork. And there is going to be things filled in on that paperwork. The complaint actually had nothing to do with what they do at their facility. Absolutely nothing. It was prepared foods and like sandwiches, something like that. So it had nothing to do with what they do at their store. And I've not been to the store. I haven't actually seen it with my own eyes, but I think I probably will now. So the individual, the food inspector, in the course of the conversation, he said to her, well, it's a good thing that you did talk to me because these things can escalate quickly. Okay, how about that statement? Isn't that beautiful? That's beautiful statement. That's right in there with things could go very bad for you. That's right there with I'm going to send a note home to your parents. That's right in there with go down to the principal's office and I will be there momentarily. Things could go very bad for you. This could really work against you, right? So a statement like that is made by this good guy, and he's trying to like put her at ease with a left-handed compliment of, it's a good thing you talked to me because these things can escalate quickly. So in Jessica's mind, or maybe I don't know what was in her mind, but in my mind, if that was said to me and I was very junior at this, I'd be thinking, oh, the FBI is going to be here next, or they're going to take my children from me, or, you just fill in the blanks here, right? But a statement like that, I have a tendency at this point in my life, if somebody makes a statement like that, is to, oh, really? I'm curious. So let's shut it down right now. And you pull out what you got. You show me what you got. You said this can escalate quick. I want it escalated right now. Matter of fact, I want to know who you work for. I want their name and telephone number right now. You could do something like that. There's a bunch of things that you could do. She left off a few things that needed to be done here, and I'm going to kind of tell you guys what they are, because when we get to the end of this briefing, you're going to see that just as in a conflict, somebody has to initiate the conflict. So we had a conflict down there at R&R Acres or R&R Homestead, and who initiated it? They were going about their business, farming, running their store, working from home, taking care of their children, and somebody initiated a conflict, unannounced, right? But he's a good guy. He's a real good guy. But who initiated that? MDAR did. MDAR did. And they said that they initiated that because somebody complained. One of your neighbors complained. Wasn't us. No, wasn't us. It was somebody else. We're just doing our job. Oh, is the person who complained going to issue me the cease and desist notice? Not that that is anything. That's nothing. That's a piece of paper with some words on it. You need to just hit disregard on that right away. Or you can cease and desist. You can. You have a choice. I can either cease and desist or not. I would be the or not guy because, okay, you telling me to stop or what? What do? If I don't stop, what are you going to do? Right? You're not going to do anything, or else you wouldn't be threatening me. You'd be here slapping the handcuffs on me if I'm doing something that you think is illegal, right? Everything that we do on our farms, or the farms that I know of, there may be farms that are doing, human trafficking or something that I don't know about, but everything I do on my farm is legal, which means there is no law against it. There are organizations that don't like it, but that's their problem. It's not my problem. It's their problem. And under our system, the system that I cleave to, which is the Constitution of the United States, I have every right to do what I'm doing here. Yeah, I know that the Department of Ag doesn't like it because they're working an agenda for somebody else that doesn't like it, that doesn't want a whole bunch of small farms like this that would take a nice big chunk out of industrial agriculture. Why are people getting into agriculture anyway? Small farms, homesteading. Why are they doing that? To take away from those guys? No, they're doing it because they want to provide for their own families. They want to be self-sufficient. They want good quality food. They want to stay away from the herbicides, pesticides, and the like that industrial ag uses like a lot. And the government says that it's okay. FDA says, well, it's fine. Glyphosate, that's fine. No problem. We don't want that. I don't want that in the food that I eat. I want food that is pure. And the only way I'm going to get that is if I have control of it. And that doesn't mean, going to Walmart and eating out of the organic section, because they would never lie to you. They would never lie to you. After all, it says on there, USDA organic, certified. USDA, they're not capable of lying, are they? No. You should have a lot of trust in them because after all, they are science-based, aren't they? Yes. You know what's nice about the United States of America and this system that we live under? Under the First Amendment, I have the right to free speech. I can sit here and say, yeah, I think they're corrupt. USDA, I think they're corrupt. I don't like the way they do things. It's my right to criticize them. I can do that. I can say that about MDA too. I think that their ranks are full of weirdos and they don't have a clear mission and they harass people very inconsistently. They are not professional and they employ people who don't even like the organization that they work for, that have zero integrity And we've seen that manifest today, right? In this testimony. This works. This briefing works because I know Jessica. She's not somebody that just called me on the phone and said, this happened to me. And I get that happen to me all the time. But I don't know them. So I don't know if they're telling me the truth, so I'm not very likely to come on and brief this. But the statement from them that somebody in your community, somebody that knows you, complained about you, what does that do? What does that do? Think of the psychological effects of that on you. You start thinking, gee, well, maybe a whole lot of people don't like what I do. You should hit the disregard on that one too. What do you care what people think? You shouldn't care what people think, so long as you know you're doing the right thing, right? It doesn't matter what people think. A lot of people think what I'm doing isn't correct. I don't care. I don't care. What do they care when I think, gee, the way you guys stink up the neighborhood and the way you treat your animals and the fact that you only hire people who come from south of the border, I don't think that's right. Do they care what I think? They don't care. They don't care. They only care what I'm doing is I'm cutting in to their action. I'm cutting into their bottom line. And, I represent a whole host of farms that do this. And we're adding to the numbers daily. And we're not adding your average person in there. I can tell you that these people, the Rousers, are go-getters. They're educated. I remember when I first met them, I even made the comment, why are you guys doing this? They just didn't look like the type of people that lived out in the countryside. They looked more like city people. And they didn't quite take that the right way when I first said it. And I had to explain it later. It's like, no, you look too high speed. You look too Minneapolis. You just don't look like country people. I was making an assumption there, and I was way off. They're sharp. They're nice people. They take care of their family really well. They're tough. She's tough. And they're going out there and getting it, not waiting for anybody to give them anything. They work hard. Her husband works hard. I don't know exactly what he does. He works online. I'm not exactly sure what he does, but apparently he's pretty good at it because he's high up, right? She's been in several different things, like hairdresser for a while, had her own salon, and that's hard work, and made a go of it, but then wanted to back down so they could take care of their family in a much better way. And they did live in Minneapolis, I think. Some big city. Maybe it was just Grand Rapids. I don't know. But so that statement that we received a complaint, let's look at that for just a second. Okay, so we could test this out. I could get 10 of you, I bet, if I asked you to do it, to call MDARD tomorrow and make a complaint against me and say that I'm making Hot Pockets at my house and I'm selling them to my raw milk customers that are coming through. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead. It would be kind of cool, because if they're going to react to somebody from town down there that has made a complaint against Jessica, then they better respond to a complaint against me, correct? And they seem to be saying that that's what we do. When citizens complain to us about other citizens, we got to check it out. That's what the dude said. I think he's lying. If I had to put money someplace, I'd say he's lying. He just wants to shift the blame from him. If he said, well, I was scrolling through my Facebook, I was scrolling through the tribe, actually, and I found Jessica Rouser, and then I trolled her for a little while, or I not trolled her, but I stalked her for a while, and I see they got a store. I can put a feather in my cap by busting that place. right? He works for MDARD. He works for MDARD. That's what they do. That seems to be all they do. I don't know what else they do. Ensure food security, I'm sure. Yeah, right. So I think that on its face is a lie. I think it is. But there is a way, and I'm going to discuss this right at the end, of how to determine whether that is a lie or not. Right? Now, they drew first blood. Is that right? They came up the driveway. They weren't invited. They drew first blood. Jessica handled herself well, but I would much have, if I could have pulled her strings at the time it was going on, I would have wanted her to say no. I would have wanted her to say go away. I would want her to say F-U-A-H or just plain you. Right? One of those would be the responses that would have been correct in this scenario. If she was unsure whether to go yes or no, or didn't know, she could have said, please go away. Please come back later. She could have done that. And then she could have got on the phone and called around and say, hey, what's the deal with this? What should I do exactly? She could have done that. And you can all do that too. So it's either no, go, F-U, F-U-A-H, or please come back later. That's it. It's never, yes, come on in. It's never, ever. Why should you invite them into your living space, into your business? I think people believe that because they have a car, a state car, and it has a state logo on the side, that we gotta. It's like, hey, the police just showed up, and the police show up and they say, can we come in, ma'am? Really, with the police, you should say no too. You really should. I mean, you don't know, because you just don't know. And you're safer if you say, no, I'll talk to you out by the road. And then when you determine the direction of the conversation, if it involves you, you have the right to remain silent, and you should remain silent. If they had enough to arrest you, they would. They would just say, I have a warrant for your arrest. You're under arrest. Turn around, put the cuffs on. And at that point, you get the cuffs, you get in the car, and you be a good person. Or they'll charge you with resisting arrest or being combative. And that was another term that came up in my conversation with Jessica this morning. She wasn't sure if he said it or she said it, but it was said in the conversation this morning that something about he's never had anybody be so combative. Why? Because she met him at his car and said, no, thanks. We don't want what you're selling. I don't want to talk to you. That's combative. Well, I wonder if that will be in the report. Now, maybe if you say F-U-A-H, it would be warranted. Now, she was combative. Yeah, you could see that. So better is just a no, thank you. Please leave. That cannot be construed as combative. And I'll go you one better. Jessica really would have covered herself if she took one of these with her and turned it on to record and put it in her shirt pocket. That way the conversation is recorded and you've got body cam going on him. So if he says that you said F-U-A-H and you were combative, you've got proof that you weren't. You said, no, thank you. Please leave. Right? And that's not going to work real good for him if there is something in the report that says that you were combative, right? So I guess that's why I'd stay away from the FU and the F-U-A-H. I would just stick with no thank you. Please leave. Right. Okay. So I know that if we were having a briefing in person, I would get this question. Well, what if they don't leave? What if they don't leave? And I will say to that, I would ask you to go and look at the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which says that American citizens, which we are, have the right to be safe in our homes and be free from unreasonable search and seizures. Unreasonable. So a reasonable search and seizure would be if Junior there had a warrant from a judge, but a warrant from a judge requires a criminal activity or the accusation of a criminal activity. Nothing Jessica was doing was criminal. The complaint didn't have anything to do with child trafficking or drugs or automatic weapons. It was all a complaint about you're making hot pockets. It was something like that. That doesn't give them the right to enter your property like enter a building. Driving up the driveway, that's pretty cool. The Mormons can do that. They can drive up your driveway, or the Jehovah's Witnesses, or whoever. And as soon as you say, no, thank you, please leave, and they don't, that becomes a very simple process for you, the citizen, because of the Fourth Amendment. So there's a little thing called trespass. If someone comes on your property without your permission, now coming up your driveway is a little bit different because they are coming seeking you, right? They're coming seeking you. But let's say you catch them out on the back 40 and they say, well, I was looking for you. No, you weren't. Or you find them in your barn or in your house. Oh, I was just looking for you. Oh, no. So about that time, you say, I'm going to have to ask you to stay where you're at right now because I'm going to make a phone call. And that phone call is very simple. It's 911. When you make that 911 phone call, you say, I have a criminal trespasser on my property that I'm holding until you get here to solve this. Everything's recorded. It's a 911 call. Anytime there's a 911 call, it has to be resolved. So the sheriff comes in the morning and he looks at all the calls during the night, and there's a call that's open, no resolution on it. He's getting on the phone, finding out what happened, right? Everything has to be resolved on a daily basis, on a 24-hour basis. Nothing's left open. All right. So if there's a 911 call and the 911 call is criminal trespass, that's not just recreational trespass. You're claiming a criminal activity. You, the citizen, are claiming criminal activity. Now, when does it become criminal? It becomes criminal when you say leave and they don't. And they don't. Let's say you say leave and they say, no, we're going to stay right here until you let us go in your building and look around. Now, these idiots will say things like that. But if you know how things work, got them as soon as they say that. Because when the police show up, which they have to respond to a 911 call, especially when you're alleging criminal activity, it is criminal when you trespass someone's property, they ask you to leave and you don't. Now you're in criminal status. Or let's say they leave, and as they're leaving, you say, don't ever come back here again. And let's say they show up the next day. Boom, 911. And when you do your side of the police report, you're going to say, at this time, on this day, I told this individual, do not come on my property. Here he is. He's in criminal status right there. That's going to have to be resolved. That can result in a stay at the jail. It can. I'm not saying it will, but it can. It can result in a court of law. Not always will it. And, in the bigger counties where they got a lot going on, will the prosecutor want to get after that? In my county, It might, because she gets raw milk from me, or did for a while. Right now, they get somebody closer. It might wind up in a criminal court. She may say, enough of this. These people need to be put in their place. They have no right to go on private property. None. Now, as I mentioned before, if you are in a licensing agreement, you have already signed away your Fourth Amendment when it comes to this department. You have agreed that they can come up your property, up on your property whenever they want to. You agreed to it. So now we're in a contract, right? And your end of the contract is, yeah, you can come whenever you want. Their end of the contract is, we want to come up when we want. You agree to that, you need your head examined. You need your head examined. Now, there are times when you're going to have some certifications from the Department of Agriculture, a license, like a warehouse license, things like that. But I recommend that anything that requires that, you don't do, because you don't need to. You can work without it. And working without a license, creating farm products without a license, is there a law against that? No. No. If there was, we would all be required to get licenses. See? So there is no law saying you got to have a license. You know, and if there was, and you didn't have a license, oh man, you'd be wearing the bracelets. You'd be wearing the handcuffs, right? You break the law, you get the handcuffs, right? You break the law, you're in the back of a cruiser. That's all there is to it. And until it gets resolved, you're sitting in a jail cell, right? That's what breaking the law means. And I'm all for that. I'm all for that. I believe we're a land of laws, and I'm glad we're a land of laws. It's not the old West where the guy that can sling his gun the quickest can do what he wants. That's not the United States of America, and I'm glad it isn't. I wouldn't want my children brought up in a country like that, and that's not who we are. Now, our leaders have deviated from that for sure, right? We've seen that. We've seen them deviate from it, and it seems like they get away with it, doesn't it? But we don't. We don't. And because they deviate from the law and we say, well, I'm going to do it too, you're not going to get away with it. If you say, well, look what Joe Biden did. I'm going to rob me a bank. If your defense is, well, Joe Biden, look what he did. That's not going to wash. You're going to jail. Okay. I'm getting lost on this a little bit. Okay. Let me go through and read some of the comments here, because I am getting a little lost where I was. Okay. Oh, somebody's asking what happened to the garlic that's normally hanging around here. It's right there. Beth the Cleric, my favorite, gave that to us, and I think Jill uses it. I don't know. Doesn't look like it. It's so nice. You know, it's all braided and everything. Yeah, there it is. Brian Jacobs, I'd like to be called Loretta going forward. Okay. Okay. Why do you want to be called Loretta, Stan? You want to have a baby. You can't have a baby. You don't have a womb. All right. All right. So tuning in, Hilltop Home Place is with us. Keith Sutton's with us. I wonder if you're still in the hospital, you slouch. Getting all that food and talking with all them pretty nurses up there. I know. I'm still in the hospital running a bunch of tests. Sure you are. You're watching TV. And Brian Jacobs wanted to be called Loretta. Okay, so let's get to the end of the story. Let's go to the end of the story, and maybe if I missed anything, maybe I'll think about it. So the incident wound up with him leaving, saying, yeah, you'll probably get a cease and desist in the mail. And she's still curious. Who in the hell turned me in? Now, I don't think that really happened. That's my personal opinion. I I'm saying that because I don't believe that the Department of Agriculture is just waiting by the phone, by the bat phone, waiting for one citizen to turn in another citizen on food. Right? I don't believe it. I don't think they have the personnel to do that. They certainly do not have the authority to do that. They certainly don't have the authority. But because they drew first blood, they have opened with Jessica and Josh. Potentially, they have opened a can of worms. And here is why. There is a term known as a term. Is it a term? Or an action? This is a verb, and it is degradation of constitutional rights under the color of law. And that is a crime, right? And that happens when someone in an official capacity makes claims, statements, gestures that seek to degrade an American citizen's rights. So for this one, we're going to go to the Fifth Amendment. I know it pretty well. I never quote the whole Fifth Amendment because a lot of it's not relative to this conversation, but the Fifth Amendment states, and I recommend that you get the Bill of Rights to the U.S. Constitution, download it, and start reading it day after day after day. Put it in front of the bathroom, use it as a bookmark, sit and read it first thing in the morning, and you'll start thinking constitutionally. Those rights, that Bill of Rights, those are your rights. Your rights. And the rights that the Bill of Rights enumerates come from God, right? The right to free speech. The right to protect yourself. Number 2, the right to own and bear arms. I have the right to protect myself. The Fourth Amendment, you're safe in your domicile and effects from unreasonable search and seizures, right? Nobody can just come in your property and look through your underwear drawer. They can't. Fifth Amendment says your life, your liberty, and your property is protected under the due process of law. So what that means is your life, your liberty, your property, your life is protected under the due process of law. Your liberty, that's your freedom. Your property is who you are. It is your process. So I am a farmer. What do farmers do? They farm. I can't go out and say, well, I child traffic a little on the side, but primarily I'm a farmer. That's not going to cut it. Farming, there's specific things that fall into the category of farming, and they're vast, right? You can't be farming. Well, I guess you could farm poppies, but I don't think you can process it into heroin. I don't think that would work. Even in the state of Michigan now, you can farm marijuana. It's a narcotic. You can. It's legal. There's no law against it, right? So there's no law against it. You can do it. And now here comes this food inspector making statements like, this could escalate fast. Oh, he may wind up on the stand, and some smart lawyer is going to say to him, what exactly do you mean by that? You're leading this person, Jessica, to believe that if she doesn't talk to you, this could escalate fast. What exactly do you mean by that? What does that statement mean? By escalating, you mean it's going to get more intense? Explain that, please. Explain that. Oh, you can't explain that. It almost looks like you're trying to degrade this woman's constitutional right to her process by your words and actions. It looks like that. And we're going to set about to prove that that was your intention. Or you tell us what your intention was, Mr. Food Inspector. Tell us, please. Now, what court am I talking about here? There are two courts that we're concerned with right now. If Jessica was doing something illegal, which means against the law, then that is a criminal infraction. If Jessica has a contract with somebody, you know, she's going to mow so-and-so's lawn, but then she doesn't do it, and so-and-so has already paid, and she won't mow the lawn, so so-and-so gets to take her into a civil court, which is a contract court. And then you make your case to the judge. Hey, under our contract, I got it right here. She's going to mow my lawn 5 times. She hasn't done it once. And I already paid her. I want my money back. You know, and the judge is going to say, how come you didn't mow the lawn? Well, there's dog manure all over it. So I said, well, that's not in the contract. You got to mow the lawn or give the money back. That's what a civil court is. It's contract court. So you may be wondering, well, how are you going to get this food inspector into a civil court? Well, the food inspector is required to take an oath. All employees for the state take an oath. To what? Protect and respect the U.S. Constitution and the state of Michigan Constitution. But the U.S. Constitution first. All state employees are required to do that. So what is that? It's a contract. Contract with who? Contract with the citizenry. Yeah. So there is a contract. So if this employee of the state seeks to degrade Jessica's constitutional rights, she has every right to get that resolved in a civil court. He is under contract with her, the constituent. Okay? So Junior goes up the driveway and thinks he's going to get a feather in his cap. He may get a letter from Jessica summonsing him to the county court so he can explain himself what he meant by this could escalate fast. He may have to give an explanation. Now, it may not go anywhere, but it might. But either way, he's going to have in his PIF, his personal information file, with his employer, that he was sued by somebody that he's supposed to be serving, right? Public servants are supposed to serve. Yeah, I'm only here because it's my job. I'm only here because it's my job, you know. So I don't know if it's going to go there. But when you see Jessica, you may think that maybe it will. Maybe it will. Because I think the both of them have a broader view of things. It's not just, their headlights don't end right in front of them, what they can see. They go much further, and they know that a scrap like this, an infraction, first blood like this, was against them. But these same type of scumbag, parasitic bureaucrats, their children might have to deal with. And so if we just let this go, they'll continue to do it. They'll do it to the next person and the next person. Or how many people that don't hear this broadcast that are going to have to deal with this type of baloney? It's worse than baloney. It should enrage people, because here's a family that's not trying to get over. They're not going the easy route. They're going the hard route. They're producing food and they're trading it with their neighbors so they can make their bills. And they got to deal with an organization like this, unprofessional organization like this. I think that just the act of that car going up the driveway unannounced and saying, we want to have a word with you, we want to look around, I think that is way off. That individual could have called and said, hey, there's been something and I need to talk. He didn't have to drive up the driveway. Why didn't he just call her on the phone? How come? And in the possibly, we'll see what happens, but possibly anything that is any statement that goes down on paper, and when I say paper, I mean electronic, like this individual was detailed to this farm and this is what you're going to do. Those orders are set in stone. I mean, they exist if it happened, if he was ordered to go there and do that, if he was detailed there. And so she has every right at this point to do a Freedom of Information Act request to the Department of Agriculture and get every bit of information that has anything to do with her farm, their farm, her name, her husband's name. And by law, the Department of Agriculture is required to cough that up pretty quick. I think 5 days. And if they don't, the plan of action there is it's a quick call to your senator and saying, I got a complaint. And they're like, ooh, a complaint. What is it? Oh, I did a Freedom of Information Act on the Department of Agriculture. Wanted any information that they have on my farm because we were visited the other day and we didn't ask for the visit, and I want to know what's going on. See, as as American citizens, we have the right to know what our government is doing if they don't cough it up in a timely manner, like the days that they said they would. And it seems like they have a pattern of, we're really busy right now because of COVID. So it could be 2 weeks. Call the senator, complain. I want it in 5 days. The Freedom of Information Act is a law, right? And they have to comply with the law, right? Let's say that they send a letter to you and they say, I want every bit of information that you have on the Department of Agriculture. There's been some conversations going back and forth between you and the tribe and all this. We want it all. You'd be like, I don't want to say it, but the Terminator said it. Have you ever heard of the Fourth Amendment? You have no right to my correspondence. You have no right to my papers and my effects. I have every right to your papers and effects. Guess why? Because you're my servant. You are a public servant. You work for me. You're paid with my tax dollars. Where do my tax dollars go? They come out of my store that you want to shut down. That's who you're dealing with here, folks. That's who you're dealing with. So I hope they press it to the hilt. I certainly would. And the only way we're going to get a handle on this and pull this poison ivy out by the roots and put them in their own lane to do whatever it is they're supposed to do, whatever it is they're supposed to do. I don't really know. But go do that. But small farms, private farms, you have no right in our business. Absolutely none. And the Fourth Amendment guarantees that. Right. So I know I've said this a million times before. I've presented it different ways, but it's all the same. It's really all the same. You, as an American citizen, you have everything you need under that Constitution to live a very good life, right? You have the right to free speech.
You can say it all. I mean, you can't threaten people, though. You can't do that. You can threaten to sue them. You can do that. But you can't threaten to do physical harm to somebody, because that's actually assault. I'm going to kick your ass. And then kicking their ass is actually battery, assault and battery. You can't say that. You can say, I'm going to take you into a court of law and get this straightened out. You can. So you can do that. So you can get things resolved. So we can all live like decent gentlemen and gentlewomen, right? That's all we want. I don't think that coming up my driveway in a car, right, in order to say we walk around and we want to shut you down, I don't think that's very gentlemanly behavior. I don't. And I think it needs to stop. I think they need to start acting like the professionals that they say they are. I don't think that's going to happen. It's like saying, I don't think poison ivy should cause me to itch. Well, it's gonna. And they are going to continue to be a scratch until they've been zapped enough times. Now, let's say when Jessica sues this individual, let's say after she gets all her FOIA information back, she finds out who initiated it, because that will be revealed. And let's say she does. Well, what do you want him to do? Do you want him to apologize? That doesn't hurt very much. No. What do you want? What do you want from him? Are you going to sue the department? Or are you going to sue the individual that works for the department that took an oath not to do what they did? I'm going to go after the individual. Are you going to go for the guy that's a little further up the food chain? Or are you going to go for the lowlife? The lowly food inspector. Easy target. The food inspector's easy. He probably doesn't have $5,000 around to retain a lawyer. That might be easy. And it would sure send a message to the rest of the scumbag food inspectors. Do not fool around with these small farms. They're not our responsibility. They are not under our authority. And they never will be under your authority. You work for us. I will never be under your authority. Right? You're under my authority. Or you could go up a little higher up the food chain, the guy that's getting ready to retire and has a summer home that he's going to retire to. Yeah, go after him. He's probably more likely to capitulate because he's got more to lose. Getting ready to retire, I don't know if I want to deal with this. This could be a long court case. Yeah, that might be the guy. But take your pick. Take your pick. Pick your targets wisely. They drew first blood. They drew first blood. They always do. We never go to them and say, do you want to come see? Or you shouldn't. I mean, I got to take that statement back, because actually when I first came out of the military, I was used to an environment where we did things correctly. And there was usually a regulation that covered what is correct. And most of the time it was correct. It was the right way to do things. So regulation outlines how to do something correctly. I'm going to read the regulation first, and then I'm going to do it. When I got out, I thought, well, that's the way it works out here too. So I called the Department of Ag. Hey, I'm going to set up a butcher shop on my farm. We're going to be butchering the animals that we have, and then we're going to sell them. They didn't ask me to sell them to who. I didn't even know who I was going to sell it to. I was just getting started. And they said, we'll be right out. We'll be right out. You know what you need? You need a warehouse license, and you need a food processing license. Okay. Does that cost much? Mark says. I got a license. Had that license for 14 years. Those guys provided zero oversight. Like, they're there to make food safety an issue. They never, not once, did they ever see my process. Not once. They came and make sure, okay, he's got screens on the windows. Okay, he's got a 3-compartment sink and a nice little sink over here to wash your hands in, because you can't wash your hands in the 3-compartment sink. Bunch of stupid rules that they have. Washable walls. Like, I would have never thought of that. I thought we were just going to have thatched roof. Good thing I checked with them. Yeah. And then they want a bunch of BS stuff like got to have a water test. We're drinking this water. It's just going to be rinsing chickens in it. Now, you got to have a water test. So every year I had to get a water test. And it was like $35, but you got to take it to the health department, drop it off. You get there at lunch, and all 4 of them ladies that work there are taking lunch at the same time. That's real efficient, but that's the health department. Yeah. So now that I have 0 licenses, I have 0 agreements with any of them. I don't have an agreement with anybody except the people who come to my store. They come to the store and they say, "Can we buy some hamburger?" I say, "Yes." And then I find out a little bit about them. Do you like hamburger? Do you like grass-fed hamburger? Maybe you'd like to have some milk, So I have an agreement with them. I have a contract with them. So if there's ever a problem and they come back and they say, "I found an eyeball in my hamburger," I say, "Oh, I'm very sorry. I've been missing that. Here's 2 pounds of hamburger, and I guarantee there's no eyeballs in that one. Are we okay?" And they say, "No, we're not." Okay, let's say. What is their options at that point? They go right up to courthouse, and they can sue me in civil court because we have a contract. Now, I didn't specifically say there would be no eyeballs in the hamburger, but they assume there wouldn't. And I may have a case to the judge. "I'm sorry. I offered to give her 2 pounds of free hamburger, but she didn't take it." And the judge say, "Well, that sounds reasonable to me. Lady, what do you want?" But like when Jessica gets around to suing these people or this person or whoever she decides to sue, not the department, you sue the individual because they took the oath. It's on them. You may decide, "Ooh, that's pretty important. I think it's as important as their scalp." But if you ask the judge for their scalp, you probably won't get it. But you may think it's worth $50,000 because maybe you have a son or a daughter that served military in harm's way, protecting and defending that Constitution with their life. So here's my son or daughter protecting this Constitution with their life, and this dirtbag food inspector is trampling it. I don't like it. You may make that decision. That's for an individual to make. Myself, I want the scalp, but I probably couldn't get it. But I'll take everything else they got. I'll take everything else they got. That's what you wanted to do to me. You wanted to take my livelihood away because of a complaint. How about I take your livelihood away because you violated your oath of office, my precious Constitution. You violated it. I'll take everything you own. Yes. And I want it here this afternoon. Well, that's a little harsh, don't you think? Look what he wanted to do. Look what his organization wanted to do to me. He's true in a way. He's right in a way. These things can escalate very fast. They can. It's sort of like a gunfight. You have 2 people that kind of like each other, but they get in a gunfight. It's lethal. Lethal. So they can escalate fast. So he was correct in that. But he was assuming that Jessica had no recourse against him. Now, will it work 100% of the time? Nothing's 100%. But going through the motions is going to raise some eyebrows. And you never know. If it happened in my county, our prosecutor might say, "Get that son of a bitch. Get him." "Oh, I don't even like this company. I just do this to make a paycheck." What? Zero integrity. Absolutely zero integrity. So that's it for tonight. That's what I got to say. Is there anything I'm leaving out there, Brian Jacobs? Beautiful family, great farm. Okay, you must have been there. Is there anything I'm leaving out that I said I wanted to put in a box and put over here? And we'll talk about that later. Anything, please. No? Can you hear me? All right. The next thing we got coming up is going to be seed exchange. And that's going to be in May. And that's when we open the farm up to all of our small farms. If you want to come to the farm that day, we usually kind of potluck it and maybe roast some meat or something like that. Last year we did it in May instead of April. April, we can have tough weather, and we don't have any place that's inside warm enough to do it. And so May, we had a wonderful day in May, and there was a lot of people and a lot of kids running around playing, the baby goats going, and a couple of baby calves going at the same time. And we had a nice lunch. We did a lot of exchanging of seeds and seedlings. I got a whole bunch of Jerusalem artichokes out of the deal from Jordan Buck. I'll be seeing him this weekend, by the way, and planted them, and man, did they come in. Those things are great. If you haven't tried them, you got to try them. Jerusalem artichokes. Some people call them artichokes. I never do, because I think that's crude, and I don't like being crude. Another thing, I have an offer for you. I have a bread contract with a company that's goal, and we get all of their day-old bread. And it's a disposal contract, and recently they are bringing way more than I can use because they can no longer take it to the homeless shelter, right? Because, I don't know, I guess the lawyers got involved or something. So we're getting way more than I need, and I am going to make that available to people. 500 pounds, $20. That's just a loading fee. That's just a handling fee, because I can't really sell it, and I'm not really selling it. I just have more than I need. But I find that if I give it away, nobody wants it. But if I sell 500 pounds for $20, people think that that's a good deal, and it is. It's a smoking deal. This is really good bread, and it works good for chickens and pigs, and even for a ration for milking cows. It's outstanding for milk cows. All right, so if you want to take advantage of that, I have a lot. We're staging it in IBC tote baskets, so it's really nice and neat the way we put it in. And if you contact me, I'll tell you a time to show, and tell me when you're going to be here. And then I'll show you, here's how it works. So the next time you need it, you just say, I need some bread. I'll say, yep, there's some up there. And you just swing on through, load, and you're on your way. Drop $20 at the store and you're on your way. Or you can drop me $20 worth of firewood, or can of diesel fuel, or some ammunition, services, hairdressing services, I don't know, whatever, labor. We've always got position here for people to do things, and we pay really good. So let me know on that. You can personal message me or call the farm or figure out some way to get in touch with me. It's not that hard, and we can make that happen. It's really cheap feed, and feed's quite expensive right now. I mean, I don't think it's ever going to go back down. It never does. As soon as they boost it up, they keep it there, But this is a way to do a workaround on it, or you can use it as a partial replacement for some of the feed that you're using or whatever. But that's how we're going to do that from now on. Okay, that's it for me. I'm gonna get going now. We do have our that would be tomorrow night. Yeah, we do have our consulting call tomorrow. So any of you that are in the Tribe Plus, you will get a notification on your phone that a Zoom call is going to be at 8:00, and here's the way to get into it. And all of our little faces will be on the screen, and then I will field questions, and we have lively conversation about all kinds of things. But mostly it's for consulting. So if you run into a crossroads on your farm operation and you got to decide which way to go, and you want to ask, me, somebody that's got some experience, there's other people on the chat too, or the Zoom call that have experience. We can help get you going in a good direction. I do on farm consulting when I go to other people's farms, if they're setting up or changing directions or whatever, but it's expensive. It's expensive because for me to take a day off of here and travel, it just is. There's expense involved. So this is a good alternative. We can cover a lot of ground electronically, and it's turned out to be a really good thing. So if you're not a Tribe Plus member, you can do that by going to bakersgreenacres.com and look around. And if you can't find it, call the farm and ask to talk to Jill. She knows all about it. Okay, it's pretty cheap. It's like, I think they say it's like coffee, something like that, but it's pretty cheap. It's a lot of fun. All right, I'm gonna get going. Thanks for coming by tonight. Remember, anyone can farm, and we will see you either tomorrow night or next week.